Calling all instructional coaches, curriculum specialists, teachers on special assignment, or whatever they call you. I'm Matteo Souza.
And I'm Katie Ritter. As instructional coaches, we are often responsible for our own professional learning and can sometimes feel pretty isolated in our role.
That's why we're here, bridging the gap with a wealth of tips, tricks, and building a community of coaches.
So hit the restart button with us.
Recharge your coaching batteries.
And hopefully you'll leave feeling just a little bit less on your own coaching island.
Welcome back to the Restart Recharge podcast, where we're dedicated to bringing you insights and inspiration to invigorate your instructional practices. Today, we're shining a spotlight on a dynamic team of coaches from Indian Hill Exempt Village Schools, a district that's proving what's possible when collaboration is at the core of coaching. From launching their very own Braves Academy EDU camp to supporting a STEM designation journey at the middle school, and even developing strategic onboarding programs that align with high-yield teaching strategies, this team is making major moves. So joining us today, we have four incredible educators. We have Betsey Henning from the elementary level, Elizabeth Ruebusch from the primary, Kristi Booth from the high school, and Lee Jimenez from the middle school. So in this episode, we're going to dive into the initiatives that you've led and explore some of the things that you've learned in the process and share with our coaches what you learned. Welcome to the pod.
Yeah, welcome everyone.
Yes, thank you so much. Yeah. Great. I was going to say, I'll jump in and just give a little bit of history as to how we came to the three initiatives that we're really focusing on K-12.
Yeah.
Love it.
So several years ago, our superintendent charged us with beginning a new strategic plan in the district. And we incorporated the voice of current staff members, community members, students, alumni. And through that, we heard that our students and our families really wanted our students to have an authentic learning experience. And so our strategic plan has led us to three high yield strategies that are really our initiatives that we're working on. Those are problem-based learning, building thinking classrooms, and leadership. For leadership, we're actually in the process of being trained in Leader in Me right now, and we will be moving forward with that starting next year, K-5, and then the training will start in secondary next year as well. So we're really excited about that opportunity to support teachers with those high yield strategies and these initiatives. We are able to do coaching cycles with teachers and lab classroom. We focus on really goal setting based coaching cycles. So teachers will come to us and we set goals around these strategies. Where do they want to focus the most? And then we get into a cadence of meeting, visiting classrooms, maybe it's planning together, whatever the teachers need to support them in developing their skills around these initiatives. At the end, we have a reflection process. But then through Lab Classroom, we're also able to support our teachers, and that is a huge professional development opportunity for our teachers. And I'm going to ask Betsey if she'll explain about that.
Sure. So Lab Classroom is something that we have worked on for several years now at Indian Hill, and it is a great opportunity for teachers to learn from colleagues. We all know that we are surrounded by expertise within our own buildings, and this gives teachers the opportunity to see it in action in real time. So each of us as coaches are able to facilitate a day in our schools where teachers are subbed out, and we have pre-arranged with other teachers in the building for us to visit their classroom. And during those visits, we have specific things that we are looking for: the high yield strategies of project-based learning, building thinking classrooms. At our buildings, it's leadership, but also we're looking for best practices in student engagement and empowerment. So we meet with one of the coaches, we meet with the teachers who are observing. We talk about what we're going to see for the day. We go and do those observations, and then it becomes more powerful when the teachers who we observed return back to our space with us. Those that we observed, the observees, and us as coaches, we're able to talk about what we witnessed in the classrooms. Teachers are able to ask questions about how things were implemented, strengths that they find in implementing certain things, areas for improvement, and we all learn from each other during that time. Then the rest of the day, once the teachers who we observed return back to their classrooms, we spend the rest of the day doing some planning and collaboration based upon what we saw in the classrooms that day.
I love that. That's amazing. I'm going to jump in and ask a couple of questions about that. Thank you both for getting us started. I'm glad that you spoke to that program. And tell me, you said LAB classroom. Can you spell that?
Yeah, lab classroom,
Lab classroom.
LAB.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay, that is making more sense. Can you please explain lob? But that makes
Yeah.
sense to me. So I love that so much. So I'm curious because I actually wanted to kick the conversation off there because we had your team on the EDU Coach Network. You all led a roundtable for us, and the focus was on this lab classroom idea and the teacher-to-teacher observations. And I think it's so powerful because as we think about sustainability and sustainable coaching, we have to be able to move beyond just the coach is the only person who can provide feedback or create these experiences. And in this lab classroom structure that you all have done is just, it's so impressive when we think about sustainability and having coaching ripple out from just coach teacher to peer-to-peer feedback and observation. So I'm just so impressed. But I'd love to know, so it sounds like you already had some district buy-in. I'm making an assumption just based on hearing you say the new superintendent and the strategic plan. And so you had some buy-in, but I'd love if you could speak to what did that process look like for you in terms of getting the buy-in from the top, from building leaders, because it sounds like there's substitute teachers involved, which we know is a challenge for many school districts right now to get subs. Pulling teachers out is a challenge for many school districts right now. And then creating this culture of, yes, come in my classroom, look and observe me, right? That's a trigger word in education, observe. So we're overcoming like a lot of emotions and real challenging situations all in one for this day. And I'm curious, you said a day. Is it one day per school year, one day per quarter? What does that look like in terms of the frequency and cadence?
One day a week per building. We each have a designated day each week.
Each week
We have a designated day where we can host lab classroom. We share pilot subs between each building has one dedicated sub for this. And so all 4 subs on Tuesdays would come to the high school, for example. So teachers at the high school, because our staff's a little bit larger with the master schedule, participate in 2 lab classroom rotations per year.
Okay. Yeah, I completely missed that it was weekly. That is amazing. So I'm curious then, so that's even more of a lift than I even thought you were referencing.
And at the primary and elementary, they participate in 3 lab classroom rotations.
Okay. Okay. Wow. That is amazing. So I'm going to put even more of an emphasis on this is how did you create that buy-in and that culture to make all of these things happen so frequently?
I would say, thankfully, the buy-in was there from administration. They really supported the idea from the beginning. And it started when we were building new buildings in the district and we needed to purchase new furniture. They wanted teachers to have the opportunity to view this furniture and see how it could support instructional practices. And then it grew from there. If it worked well for furniture, how could it really support instructional strategies?
That is awesome. So a couple of things, Elizabeth, I want to dig into really quick. So I'm hearing you say it was almost like, even if accidental or not intentional, you almost had a little pilot group to make this happen from the furniture standpoint. Was the intention to use that as a pilot group, or did it just go so well, then it was like, hey, let's continue. Like you said, what could this do for instruction, large scale, if we were to do this looking at instruction, not just furniture, and how to create different classroom environments?
So at the primary school, we actually did not get new furniture. So we kind of started it here from the mindset of, hey, your teachers are getting a lot of opportunity in the other buildings to learn from each other. We don't want to miss out on that just because we're not getting furniture. So ours has always been from that instruction standpoint. And then when we started having those conversations, the other buildings quickly joined in. Betsey, I know the elementary really joined in a lot with that, looking at it from that instructional standpoint. How did you shift from that furniture piece to the instruction piece?
When we started, our focus, like Elizabeth said, was the furniture, but it wasn't just furniture. We know as educators that we make do with stuff in our classroom all of the time.
Oh, yeah.
So the furniture does not make great instruction. the teacher makes the great instruction. So yes, we were piloting furniture. We focused on the instruction that was happening and made possible by the flexible use of furniture.
100%.
So that's how we kind of bridged that. And then after the furniture piece was removed, we were still focusing on great pedagogy anyways. I might ask Lee to speak a little bit because Elizabeth and I have always had the opportunity to support lab classrooms as facilitators, but Lee and Kristi were able to host in their room when they were in the classroom as well. So he might be able to give a little bit of insight, and Kristi as well, into what it was like having people in your classroom.
Go ahead.
So when I was approached with this, I felt like it was an honor to have people come in and give me feedback to help me level up my teaching. And we were just venturing into PBL. And so I felt like every week was a new week to get critiqued and better myself, better my craft. And I felt like it was an opportunity to stretch what I was doing in the classroom. And for me, it was an opportunity to show my peers that it can be done and that it's okay to fail, because there's plenty of times when people did come in and the lesson didn't go as planned and you kind of have to pivot. But hearing them speak about it and seeing the power of my kids failing and me failing, but learning from it, I feel like was a chance for everybody to grow. And Betsey was definitely there with me, like helping me plan, helping me see the bigger picture. And having that partner to like a sounding board to work with was definitely allowed me to feel more comfortable with that role. And there was two other lab classroom teachers involved.
That's great.
Yeah, I would just add that debrief piece that Betsey or Elizabeth mentioned was really powerful too for all involved. I think in thinking about people being the ones being observed or being the observers, being able to come together as a team and have everyone on the team look at everyone like, oh, you tried that and it failed, or you're okay being vulnerable and saying that didn't go well, also opened up greater collaboration on teams. Or at the high school, it's brought together other departments just because of the way our schedule works that don't normally have the opportunity to collaborate. So learning from each other in that way has also been a really wonderful experience.
I love that so much, and I'm so glad you called out that debrief piece, Kristi, because I do think the way that you, like, one, the whole thing is just about like sustainable transformation in teacher practice, community building, collaboration, but then it goes from observation, learning, to debrief, reflection, which is really where adult learning happens, to then the planning and implementation piece that you said was the last piece of what did we learn, how do we implement it into our practice. So I love the like full circle approach there. Sorry, my last question, then I'll stop. How do you decide the participants? So I think I heard, Lee, you said there were the 3 opportunities depending on which building you're at and how frequently you do it. Are the lab teachers who are observed and the ones doing the teaching during these observations, are they set throughout both or all 3 observations, or does that rotate? How do you choose who's actually observing?
So luckily we have 3 next year. This year I had a team of 6, so I was able to jigsaw it and see different people. And a little bit to your sustainability part, I actually had a teacher approach me yesterday asking if they can be one of the lead teachers. And so people being vulnerable and willing to step up and be leaders like that is going to help us. So I have 2 answers. One of them is the sustainability part of it. This year I had a teacher just approach me yesterday about being a lead teacher and being vulnerable because they saw the benefits of being a lead teacher and getting that feedback. And so this year I had 6 lead teachers, and I was able to jigsaw the schedule. A couple of times even, I was able to reach out to Elizabeth and Betsey and ask if we can venture over to their buildings and create some kind of observations. And we're thinking about for the future, how do we reach out more to the different buildings and create a little bit more of it, bridging over to the different buildings. And so for me, we have 3 this year, plus the one that just offered up their time. So I think the different buildings have different ways of approaching it.
Yeah, you're already pointing towards what I was going to ask as a question. Something I immediately notice is you all have great rapport. Right off the bat, you set each other up even. Clearly there's a team dynamic that's really effective here. But I heard you say, oh, the other building just picked that up. And I'm like, that's a big thing. That's not something that easily can be replicated. I'm assuming that part of this is your guys' amazing chemistry together. But what really allowed the other teachers to get involved in it as well and get so excited and have other buildings jump in this thing?
I would say, honestly, the learning opportunity that they saw taking place. The first year that we did this, the teachers who were our lab site or our lab classroom teachers, they were very vulnerable. They were okay with failing in front of others. But when we went in to visit their classrooms and our teachers just saw how real it all was, they were very okay with starting to open their own doors because they realized, okay, I don't have to prepare anything different. I just need to continue to instruct children, showing best practice the way I always would. And so it just made it feel very real and authentic, which was very helpful. I think by establishing those cultures within each of our buildings, we've been able to cross buildings well because it's a culture that's being established K-12 in our district. And so teachers are able and feel comfortable inviting others from other buildings in so that we can learn from each other. And it's really been fun to hear the conversation, to hear the discoveries teachers are making and the overlaps of how many similarities you see between a kindergartner and a high school. It's more than anyone ever anticipated. So it's been really fun to see that aspect of it.
That is awesome. How do you decide who gets to do the observing each week?
It looks a little bit different in each building, just depending on staff and schedules.
Okay.
So for me at the high school, our lab classroom teachers who were being observed signed up for their dates based on what was going on in their curriculum calendar. Like, when did it make sense for people to come and observe, along with their timeline for end of course and AP exams.
Sure.
And then our teachers also signed up for their preferred date if it worked out that way, which allowed for that kind of cross-curricular lab classroom experience, which was an unintended benefit in finding some overlap between biology and English of things that aligned, which was nice. And then next year for the high school, anyone can be a lab classroom, which I know is something that the younger buildings have done that we're following suit on, so that everyone can have that opportunity to open up and share what they're doing within their class.
I'm curious, what does and I think maybe it was Betsey that you said, right? Like, everyone's expected to participate observing either 2 or 3 times depending on the building. Am I saying that correctly?
Yes.
Okay. What does the accountability then? So they're just kind of signing up like, hey, this works for me in my schedule, it sounds like, in terms of when they do the observing. But what does the accountability piece look like on the back end to make sure that everyone is actually doing their 2 to 3 each year?
So at the lower buildings, our teachers observe with their coaching teams. The expectation is everyone who teaches language arts in 5th grade all goes through their lab day at the same time.
Okay.
If a teacher is unable to do that because they're sick and things come up, then they just join with another group at another time, typically with grade level peers, but not their subject level peers. We also include our specialists in this. So this is not just classroom teachers, our intervention, and what we call our unified arts, our music and arts. Those specialists also attend as well. The accountability is that there is planning time and collaboration time within lab classroom, and we are working on units that all of those teachers are implementing.
That's awesome. What does admin involvement look like in this, or the collaboration between you and the building leadership?
We're all very lucky that we have extremely supportive administrators, and my building, the administrators come to our lab classroom. They aren't able to stay for the entire day, but they do stay as long as they can each week to see what is going on because they value the process as well.
That's great. And Lee, I love what you said too about the opportunity it creates for all of you as a coaching team, right? You mentioned, Lee, that Betsey was there helping you plan ahead of maybe one of the observation days when you were leading instruction. And so I love the opportunity to collaborate with some of your best instructional leaders, right? I would assume that's who is wanting to participate to lead the lessons, but then also great follow-up post observations if somebody really needs some more help. So great way to plant some seeds and create sustainable coaching conversations ahead of and post observations with teachers kind of spanning the gamut of maybe where they're at with some of these different skills.
We'll take a really quick break for our sponsors, and then we will be right back asking you a couple more questions.
Calling all instructional coaches. Join Forward Edge for Coaches Camp in summer of 2025. Coaches Camp is packed with high-quality professional development exclusively for you. Attendees will work with like-minded coaches on creating strategies for building teacher relationships, executing coaching cycles, and building a culture of coaching and tech integration within their school district. There are 2 opportunities to attend Coaches Camp in the summer of 2025. You can either join us virtually July 22nd through 24th, or come to Cincinnati on July 28th and 29th. Please visit forward-edge.net/coachcamp to reserve your spot today.
Welcome back, dear listeners. I hope you enjoyed this little quick commercial break. We have heard and talked a little bit about the onboarding program that you all have been working on. You mentioned the high yield strategies, the authentic learning, the problem-based approaches, leadership. Could you walk us a little bit about that program, walk through that program a little bit and tell us what the long-term goals here are?
Yeah, sure. So the idea behind this is we are discovering that now that we are at a point with our teachers that they have received so much professional development around these high yield strategies that we've got to start supporting our new hires when they come into the district so that they will have the same experiences as our classroom teachers. And it's really important for us because that's how we feel like we'll be able to ensure equity in student experience. So it shouldn't matter if your child has a teacher who's a veteran teacher in the district or a new teacher in the district, they deserve the same experience. And this onboarding program will help ensure that for our students. So that's why we want to focus on those high yield strategies, as well as things like classroom management and AI. Not that they're not going to come to us with some of those experiences already, but what's the Indian Hill way of doing that? We're able to support them in that learning so they know what to expect and how they can transition from a previous role, or in some cases from school into the classroom.
Mm-hmm. I love that because so often I feel like we do so much training in schools and then it's like our people are trained. We're pivoting initiatives, right? And then we forget about all of the new teachers that come into the district and that they haven't had the same level of experience. And often we don't quite give that the same time and attention in ongoing years, even when we're still expecting that of our teachers. So I love to hear the focus that you are putting on the new teachers coming in. And Mateus, I think you were going to say something too.
No, I was just going to go for a second to those high yield strategies that you identified. It sounds like those came pretty much from the ground up. They were established. Did you encounter any kind of pushback on any of those? Because, I mean, you guys sound like a very cohesive district, but building idiosyncrasies play into this and teachers have different opinions. Was there any pushback, or was this a consensus that was easily established with all of you?
I can answer a little bit of that if that helps. We began talking about the strategic plan during our COVID year. So it was a time where a lot was already going on, but the district really felt very strongly about making sure everyone's voice was heard. That includes the teachers, the students, alumni, community members, parents. Many surveys, many opportunities for focus groups were held. These strategies came out as those that everyone involved in the Indian Hill community felt very strongly about. That helps once we had the big ideas and we needed to really kind of narrow down as to what does implementation look like, because everyone had the same big ideas. When we narrowed it down to implementation, what that would look like in the classroom setting and for teacher professional development.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah, that's great. I'm curious, you have a lot of other things going on. We know that you have a STEM designation, Braves Academy, EDU camp, and different things, right? You're not only focused on these lab teachers. You've got tons of other hats that you're wearing too. But I'm curious, when we think about this concept of focusing on the high yield strategies, right? Keeping everybody's rowing their boat in the same direction, focused on these high yield strategies. What is one of the biggest challenges that you all face? And how did you overcome it related to just those things?
I think time is always a challenge. I think setting up the lab classroom program has really helped with that because it is dedicated time, not only for teachers to learn, but for them to plan with each other, with us as coaches. But I think there's always more time we could have, right? We have really talented teachers who want to do things really well. So I don't know as it's a challenge as much as just something in a school setting that you're always going to be short on.
Was anything that implementing the lab teacher program that you took off of the plate to help balance that time?
I do think it was providing dedicated time to develop lessons and units and collaborative approaches around the strategies.
Yeah, that they would maybe normally be doing on their own outside of the school day.
Yes.
Yeah.
As a teacher who participated and was implementing those things in real time, I definitely felt like that time was a consideration that the administration and coaches gave to us to do it well.
Great. Lee, what were you going to say?
I think when you work at a district like ours that has been functioning at a high level for so long, a challenge can be making sure that our high achieving status is still happening.
Yeah.
And so creating a forum to have discussions and discourse about how these strategies can keep those scores up, keep making sure that we're achieving high, and that what you're doing already, a lot of what you're doing already fits within these high yield strategies. So we create a learning environment that our kids are ready for the future. And so when we look at these high yield strategies, we're thinking about how do we prepare our kids for the future that's different than what was our future. And I think about a challenge for ours is integration. It's a middle school. I think each building has a different, unique challenge within itself. And for the middle school, it's integration across the core subject levels and using bell periods. And so we've been tackling that the past year.
Yeah, such a great point that you make, Lee, about high achieving districts. There can often be this mentality of, well, our kids are already finding success. Why would we change what we're doing? Then we risk losing that success or not being as successful. So I think that's a great point that you mentioned with that mentality shift. Sometimes can be harder than maybe districts where they're not performing so well. So, you have to change something. So may as well try something new. So aside from the unique challenges, and by no means do I want to paint a picture that this was easy for you all to bring all of these just incredibly well thought out programs that you've put into place that are really creating this amazing collaborative culture across your entire district. I can't help but have the coaches in my ear who would love to roll this out, and they don't have the administrator support. They don't have admin who are supportive. They don't have teachers who are willing to sign up because they see that it would be a benefit to them in their learning. So I'd love to push your thinking in what is maybe the one tangible piece of advice. You can each give something quickly, but what would be the one tangible piece of advice? Where would you recommend a coach who's maybe feeling defeated and they would love to do this, but they just don't have the support, whether it's teachers or admin? Where would you recommend that they start to try to make one step forward? Go ahead, Lee.
I would say start small. My advice would be start small and work with those that are willing to work with you and champion them and shine a light on them right away. Use your energy physically and emotionally
Yeah.
with those who are willing. And then hopefully that can bring along others with them.
Love that.
I think if you have a lot of resistance from teaching staff, finding a way to potentially incentivize that. For example, we all have to renew with continuing education units, right? Every year. Maybe those teachers can earn some CEUs from the district for giving of their time and opening their classroom and having that vulnerability. It doesn't cost the district anything. The teacher benefits wherever they might be in their license renewal cycle by sort of putting in that extra time and expanding their practices and allowing others to witness them as well.
Yeah.
So mine's very similar to Lee's. Start with one. You only need one teacher to be willing to open their door and one teacher to observe. And if you can start with that, from my experiences, it spreads. When we walked into the classroom and saw that classroom management wasn't an issue because the students were so engaged, that gave us a ton of buy-in from some of our most resistant teachers. So starting with that one and then seeing the benefits from there really makes it spread quickly.
Awesome.
I would say one thing that I've utilized when I have come up with roadblocks is I'm very honest with the group and I say, why can't we do this? And we list it. Tell me every reason this isn't going to work. And then we look at that list and kind of break it down. Are there things that we can change on here that might help us move forward? And what could we be creative about? and then start small.
Yeah, I always like that radical candor approach. Just be
Mhm.
honest and make this a transparent conversation for sure. Well, Katie, I feel like those were our top 4 tips right there.
I don't know. Maybe they have something else. They've got so many good things. Give them the chance.
We're gonna do another round of this. This went so well. We're gonna do this one more time. If you could, we're putting that microphone in front of you, and we're asking you for the top tip for a coach trying to emulate any of the programs that you're doing. How do you get started? How do you get even better as a coach?
I would say don't be afraid to ask the question of what if. The answer to the what if question is that it's best for students. There's always a way to make it happen.
Oh, good.
I was actually going to go along your radical candor example. One of the benefits is we are not evaluative. We are teachers. And so providing that safe space when you are in lab classroom to say like, okay, what are you afraid? What are you excited about? What are you afraid of? Like, let's get that on the table so that we know what we're working with that day, because it looks different with every group that you have, what their reservations might be or whatever they're most excited about. So having that honest conversation to kick it off, I think goes a long way.
Yeah.
I would say two things. In addition to what they've already shared, one of the things we have found that is very helpful is to prioritize time with your coaches. Prioritize the time as peers that you have to meet.
Mm-hmm.
If you have a peer coach that you can do that with, or if someone in the like mindset, prioritize that time for meetings. And then also be aware of what professional development is available to you. Many times we as coaches are bringing the professional development opportunities to the teachers, but we need to also be aware of how we can grow ourselves, but also how we can grow in order to help teachers grow.
Absolutely.
Just to piggyback, like the more we grow, the better we serve. Find time to listen to a podcast or find some articles, some readings, things like that. Even if you don't have time to read, there's things for AI that can create notes for you and you can listen to and still keep your learning going. So for me, that's a huge one. And then find your tribe, whether it's in your building or it's outside your building. I'm lucky to have such a good sounding board that there's times I walk over to Kristi's office because we have a connection and I can just ask her questions, or I text Betsey or text Elizabeth, and they're always willing. So whether it's in the district or outside the district, you should not go in and out alone. This is my first year in this role, and for me, I could not have done this without the three lovely ladies helping me throughout this year. So learning from them as well.
Yeah, those were outstanding concrete tips. Great. I feel silly even questioning if we were done yet.
Yeah.
That's outstanding.
We can't ever cut out the tips, you see?
No, of course not.
Guys, this is amazing. If our listeners want to know more, if they want to reach out, how could they get a hold of any of you?
So I think IndianHillSchools.org definitely has all of our emails on it. I know we welcome visitors. If our listeners happen to be local to Cincinnati, we welcome visitors into the school district all the time. Anyone's welcome to come and observe. And I know each of us have different social media handles as well.
Well, go ahead. We'll just go around the horn and you can share them. Elizabeth, why don't you go first?
Yeah, mine is for Instagram, IHPS Innovation Coach.
Okay.
Great.
Let's go.
Sure. Mine's the same for X and Instagram. It's Mr. Lee Jimenez 11.
Okay.
Kristi
On Instagram, I'm just Kristi Booth.
and Betsey.
I have to look mine up. I can't remember what the account is.
Kristi was looking it up too.
Yeah,
you look like that student cheating right there during the test.
I think it's Henning Betsey and then a 1. I'm pretty sure that's what my X account is.
Well, we'll confirm and we'll make sure that we link all of those in the show notes so people have spelling and everything. They can get it from restartrechargepodcast.com. They'll be able to get all of that info.
Yeah, we'll have all of that in the episode description. So
I hope that you all are packaging this up and applying to present at every conference that your district will send you to, because this is so incredibly helpful. I cannot wait for other coaches to hear these ideas, even beyond the round table. I think this is going to be just so helpful and spark so many ideas to take back for real sustainable change. So do you happen to be going to any conferences soon or presenting where somebody might be able to see you? Is that on the docket yet?
Not currently.
Available.
No, but this fall, hopefully.
Yeah, well,
Well,
get
let this-
those applications in because you guys really have some great golden nuggets here.
Yeah,
Thank
let
you
this
so
be
much
your
for
push.
sharing them with us.
For sure. Let this be your push to go and apply. Thank you so much for listening to our episode as well. And if you have any thoughts or feelings, find us on Instagram, X, social media, the music apps, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts.
You got it right.
I totally guessed. That was 50-50. All right. Thank you, everyone.
Calling all instructional coaches. Join Forward Edge for Coaches Camp in summer of 2025. Coaches Camp is packed with high-quality professional development exclusively for you. Attendees will work with like-minded coaches on creating strategies for building teacher relationships, executing coaching cycles, and building a culture of coaching and tech integration within their school district. There are 2 opportunities to attend Coaches Camp in the summer of 2025. You can either join us virtually July 22nd through 24th, or come to Cincinnati on July 28th and 29th. Please visit forward-edge.net/coachcamp to reserve your spot today.
Thanks for spending time with us today. If you found this episode helpful, please share it with an educator friend.
And connect with us on social media at RRCoachCast to let us know what you thought of the episode and what topics you want us to discuss next.
New episodes drop every other Tuesday. Be sure to subscribe to Restart Recharge wherever you listen to podcasts.
So press the restart button.
Recharge your coaching batteries and leave feeling equipped and inspired to coach fearlessly with the Restart Recharge podcast.
A Tech Coach Collective.